Hey everybody, it's Julie, and I'm here to present the brand new Tilt and Rock die set. This is a really fun way to make some interactive cards that tilt and sway or tilt and rock just by tilting the card itself. So I'm going to start by doing a dry run here with the mechanism itself so you can see how it all comes together. I've got some glue dots, I've got a penny, I've got a 1/4 inch foam adhesive dot, I've got the mechanism already cut from some scrap paper, and then I've got a hole punch that's going to go anywhere on the panel there, and a shape that I want to make tilt or pivot on the card front. And I also have some double thick foam tape that I made by just sticking the tape to itself, so it was double thickness. So I'm going to take this cloud shape. This is what I'm going to use as my demonstration here. And I want to secure it to this panel so that it will tilt from that pivot point right there. So now that I'm sure that's where I want it to go, I'm going to take that, it's a little bit larger than 1/4 inch anywhere hole punch die, and anchor it with some washi tape and send that through my die cutting machine. And then I'm going to take the mechanism. And if you look at the die, you'll see that there's an X and then there's a circle, and those lines will deboss into the paper. The circle's a little bit harder to see, but they're just to indicate to you where to glue your penny and where to attach your foam dot. Now I glue the penny on one side and then I flip it over, and I'm going to put the foam dot there in the middle of that circle area there, just like the die depicts. And then I'm going to go ahead and peel away that liner paper. I'm going to take my background panel and pop that over the top. It's going to come right through that opening there. And because I've already peeled away the liner paper, I can then go ahead and stick that cloud shape right on there. And when I tilt my card back and forth or shake it back and forth, you'll see I get this really cool tilting action. And there's the back side of it that will be hidden. No one will ever see that. I'm going to put a double layer of foam mounting tape there on this panel, and then I can mount it to my base card to complete the card. And that's just going to give you enough clearance there for that penny to swing freely so you get that motion. So here is what it looks like on a for real card. Now I'm working with the Aloha set, and I've taken the Hula Girl and I've stamped her and colored her twice. The first one is on my background panel, and then on the scrap piece of watercolor paper, I needed the skirt. And the Aloha set has an additional die that will cut out just her skirt. So I've determined that's where I want to punch my hole through the panel so I can attach the skirt. And I've got my mechanism all ready to go with the foam dot on one side and the penny on the other. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay my background panel over the top there. I'm going to peel away the liner paper. And I did want to show you that there's a little bit of play there with that. And there's a reason for that because, you just need a little bit of room that it's not snugly fit in there so that it will sway back and forth. So now I'm going to go ahead and secure my skirt. And as you can see, when I wave that back and forth, her skirt tilts. If I tilt it, the card from side to side, and back on the back side of that panel, I went ahead and put some foam mounting tape. Again, a double thick layer of foam mounting tape to give clearance for that penny to move freely. Now, that penny can't swing all the way around, but if you need to, add some additional bumpers of foam tape to prevent it from swinging all the way around. You have to be really aggressive, though, to do that. Now, I wanted to add some additional elements here to decorate the card front. So I'm just playing around with this different foliage, but I did mount it with a double thick layer of foam tape so it would not impede the movement of that skirt. So pay attention to that if you're adding any extra elements on the front of the card. You want to have that skirt going back and forth very freely. Isn't that fun? All right, moving on to the rocking mechanism. It also has an X that marks the spot there on the die cut piece for where to mount your penny. I've also got an anywhere 1/8 inch hole punch. I'm going to be working with a mini brad this time. And I've got my penny, and I've got some double thick foam tape once again. So to get this one prepped, I'm just going to go ahead and use a glue dot. I really like using glue dots for securing my pennies on these kinds of mechanisms. And get that in place. And then I need to determine where that other hole there needs to be positioned on my background panel because that's the pivot point for this mechanism. So once I've got that determined, my cloud is going to get mounted there at the top and it's going to rock back and forth. So this is really great for images that are tall or anything you want to have rocking back and forth from a certain anchor point, right? So I'm going to take my anywhere hole punch after I've marked where that pivot point needs to go, and I'm going to die cut through that panel. Then I can take my mechanism and my little mini brad, and I'm going to secure the two together. Now I've got the penny facing forward, facing me this time. Then I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to grab those prongs and start to flatten them. Now the trick with this mechanism is you need to make sure that you do not tightly flatten those prongs. If you do, then it's not going to swing and move back and forth, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So once I've got that, I'm just using a piercing tool to make sure that it prevents me from smashing those prongs nice and flat. So then I'm going to hide all of that with a foreground, and I'm going to put a perimeter of double thick foam tape all around there to give it enough height that allows the penny to swing back and forth. So that penny needs that double layer of foam mounting tape. So I'm going to conceal that little mini brad, which is my pivot point, and then I'm going to add my foam tape there at the end of that extension, and then secure the piece that I want to have rocking and swaying back and forth. So that's just how that mechanism works. And then to mount this to a base card, I'm going to need to put another layer of foam mounting tape because I've still got those prongs to deal with. So I'm going to put a single layer of foam mounting tape in place here all around the perimeter, but I just want to make sure I stay clear of those prongs because I do not want anything to block them from moving. And there, when the card gets assembled, you'll see that when you tilt it back and forth, the cloud is swaying or rocking up above. So let's do this for real on a real card. I've already got a background panel ready to go. I've got a foreground panel ready to go. And I've added a double thick layer of foam tape around the perimeter. I decided for this one, because I'm using something really skinny and I want to disguise my mechanism, I decided to cut it from some clear plastic. Now, sometimes it's hard to cut through plastic with these low profile dies, so I sandwich mine in between some typing paper. I'll give it a couple passes through my machine, but if it still doesn't cut all the way through, I just take my scissors and follow the cut lines, and it's just really easy to trim it out the rest of the way really fast. So now I'm going to take my palm trees. I'm working with the jungle set, and I'm going to take two of those that I've already stamped and die cut and mount those with a little bit of that score tape along their trunks. And I'm going to layer them together, and I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape at the top of that second tree. And that's just going to let it pop up, give it just a little bit more dimension from those trees. You don't have to do that. I just did because I thought, well, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll know next time. Don't do that. But there was a little bit of foam tape exposed there, so I just flipped it over to the back. And just to make sure it wouldn't stick to my background, I added some anti-static powder. Pounced that over the surface to neutralize any adhesive that might be still sticky there on the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and determine where these palm trees, I don't want them up so high that they're clearing the edges of the card, but I also don't want them so low that the bottom of the mechanism is hanging out the bottom of the card. So once I determine where that pivot point is going to go, I'm going to go ahead and mark it and then grab that anywhere 1/8 inch hole punch and send that through my die cutting machine. And I always like to use washi tape to keep it from moving around. Now I've got my mechanism ready to go. I'm going to secure it to my background panel with that little mini brad. And again, when I flip it over and I start to flatten those, I want to make sure that I don't flatten them too tightly because I need that to be able to just swing back and forth freely. I've got my foreground with my double thick layer of foam mounting tape. I'm going to pop that on the front. And then once I have that in place, I like to peel away the liners just a little bit and then make sure I've got it on straight. And then I pull them the rest of the way out. Now I added a single thickness of foam tape all around the perimeter of that panel. And then I mounted it to my card base. And then as I tilt this back and forth, those palm trees are rocking and swaying in the wind. And then I just added a few more embellishments there to the front. I love those little tiki guys. They crack me up, and I think they're so perfect with this sentiment. And there you have it. That's the Tilt and Rock die mechanism. Hope you enjoyed. This die is now available at ellenhudson.com.